The crisp autumn air swept through New York City as Barron Trump walked across the business school campus, his tall frame moving with purpose despite the weight of his backpack. At 21, he had grown into his height, no longer the lanky teenager who had once seemed uncomfortable in the spotlight. Now he moved with quiet confidence, nodding at classmates who passed by but rarely stopping for extended conversations. Life at business school suited Barron. He'd found his rhythm in the daily routine of classes, study groups, and occasional coffee breaks at the small shop tucked away in the corner of the library. Unlike his family members who seemed to thrive under the constant glare of cameras, Barron had always preferred the shadows. He spoke when needed, smiled when appropriate, but otherwise kept his thoughts to himself. That morning, the campus buzzed with a different energy. The business school had announced its dean's list, and Barron's name had appeared near the top. He hadn't mentioned it to anyone, not even his roommate Tom, who constantly checked his phone for updates on anything Trump-related. But news traveled. Fast, especially when it carried the Trump name. "Hey man, why didn't you say anything?" Tom caught up with Barron as he headed toward his Economics of Sustainable Business class. "Your name's all over the school newsletter. Top marks in finance and strategy." Barron shrugged, adjusting his glasses. "It's just grades, Tom, no big deal." Tom rolled his eyes. "Right. For normal people, it's a big deal. For you, it's Tuesday." "Wednesday, actually," Barron replied with a small smile. "And I've got class in 10 minutes. Across town, in a glass-walled office overlooking Central Park, Tyler Reynolds paced back and forth, his usually perfect hair slightly disheveled from running his hands through it too many times. The ratings report open on his tablet showed a steady downward trend for late-night discourse, now in its 5th season. "People are tired of the same old political jokes," said Vanessa, his executive producer. She sat comfortably in one of the plush chairs, seemingly unconcerned by the crisis unfolding. "Every late-night show does Trump jokes. We need something fresh." "Fresh?" Tyler stopped pacing to stare at her. "It's a political satire show. Politics isn't exactly known for being fresh." Vanessa swiped through her phone and held it up. "Here's Fresh, the younger generation of political families. They're making waves in their own right." Tyler glanced at the screen, which showed a collection of news articles about the children of various political figures. "They're kids. Most of them aren't even involved in politics." "They don't have to be," Vanessa replied. "They're connected to the political world. And viewers are curious about them. Look at these social media numbers when any of them make public appearances." Tyler took the phone and scrolled through the images. He paused on one showing Barron Trump at a recent charity event, standing slightly apart from his family, tall and serious in a perfectly tailored suit. "Barron Trump," Tyler said thoughtfully. "The mystery kid. Hardly ever speaks in public." "Exactly," Vanessa nodded eagerly. "People are curious. What's he like? What does he think about his father's politics? Does he have political ambitions? Of his own? He's at business school now, right?" Tyler handed back the phone, his mind already working. "Has he ever done a talk show?" "Never. Not a single one. He doesn't do interviews, period." A slow smile spread across Tyler's face. "Then we'll be the first. Imagine the ratings if we got the most private Trump to open up on our show." "He'll never agree," Vanessa warned. "His people shut down interview requests immediately." "Everyone has a price," Tyler said, dropping into his chair and spinning to face his computer. "Or a pressure point. We just need to find his." That afternoon, as Barron left his last class of the day, his phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Have you seen this? Call me when you can." The message included a link to a clip from Late Night Discourse. Barron found a quiet bench under a maple tree and clicked play. On screen, Tyler Reynolds sat behind his desk, his signature smirk in place as he addressed the camera. And in business news, it seems the youngest Trump has made the dean's list at his fancy business school. "Yes, folks, Barron Trump apparently knows how to read. I'm as shocked as you are." The audience laughed, though some of the laughter sounded uncomfortable. "Of course, when your family can donate buildings, it's amazing how quickly your grades improve," Tyler continued. "I'm just saying, I'd be on the dean's list too if my dad could threaten to send mean tweets about the professors." Barron closed the video, his expression unchanged. This wasn't the first time he'd been the butt of a joke, and it certainly wouldn't be the last. He had learned long ago that reacting only fed the fire. His phone rang almost immediately. "I saw it," Barron said before his mother could speak. "It's nothing, Mom. Just another comedian trying to get attention." "It's disrespectful," she replied, her accent more pronounced when she was upset. "You work hard. Your professors tell me you never ask for special treatment. And that's why it doesn't matter what some talk show host says," Barron assured her. "People who matter know the truth." After calming his mother, Barron headed back to his apartment, unaware that at that very moment, his name was being discussed in an emergency meeting at the offices of Late Night Discourse. The Barron joke got traction, Vanessa announced, displaying a screen showing social media metrics. "Mixed reactions, but lots of engagement. And look who's commenting." She pointed to several responses from prominent political figures and celebrities, some condemning Tyler's joke, others amplifying it. "We need to double down," Tyler decided. "Send another invitation to his people. Tell them we want to give him a chance to respond." "They've already declined 3 times, his assistant pointed out, very politely but very firmly. "Then we make it impossible for him to say no." Tyler leaned forward, eyes gleaming with the look that had made him famous and feared in entertainment circles. "We keep talking about him, every night. Nothing too mean, just enough to make it clear that his silence looks, well, whatever we want it to look like. Afraid, controlled by his family, unable to think for himself." The team exchanged glances. They'd seen this strategy before, and it usually worked. Controversy created content. Content created viewers. Viewers created revenue. "Start with something light tonight," Tyler instructed his head writer. "Something about him hiding in his ivory tower of academia while the real world burns. Make it funny, not cruel. We're just poking the bear, not shooting it." That night, as promised, Tyler included another joke about Barron in his monologue. And the next night. And the night after that. Each comment carefully crafted to suggest that Barron's silence was telling, that perhaps he had something to hide, or perhaps he simply had nothing to say. In his apartment, Barron watched the IQ clips that inevitably found their way to him through friends or family. He said nothing, made no public comment, but those close to him noticed a subtle change. He spent more time in the library, researching something that had nothing to do with his classes. His roommate Tom caught glimpses of articles about media, manipulation, political discourse, and the psychology of public confrontation on Barron's laptop. "You know," Tom said one evening as they shared a pizza, "you could just go on the show and shut him up." Barron looked up from his textbook. "That's exactly what he wants." "So, give him what he wants, but on your terms." Barron considered this, taking another slice of pizza. "My family has always respected my decision to stay private." "And that's cool," Tom agreed. "But maybe it's time to speak up. Not because he's pushing you into it, but because you have something worth saying." The next morning, Barron received a text from his older brother. "Saw Reynolds' show last night, what a joke. Dad wants to tweet about him, but I told him you can handle yourself. You can, right?" Barron stared at the message for a long moment. His family had always been fighters, for better or worse. They faced critics head-on, sometimes with more force than necessary. He'd chosen a different path, but perhaps there was a middle ground, a way to respond that was true to himself. He opened his laptop and began typing an email to his personal assistant, who handled his limited correspondence. It was time to surprise everyone, including Tyler Reynolds. "Please contact the producers of Late Night Discourse," he wrote. "Tell them I'm willing to appear on the show next month after midterms. I have one condition. We discuss media responsibility and its impact on political discourse. If they agree to that topic, I'll be there." He hit send before he could second-guess himself, then turned back to his studies. Whatever happened next, he would be prepared. The email from Barron Trump's assistant landed in the Late Night Discourse production inbox at 8:37 a.m. By 8:42, it had been forwarded to 6 people, including Tyler Reynolds, who was still asleep, in his penthouse apartment overlooking the Hudson River. By 9:15, An emergency meeting had been called, and by 10:30 Tyler was sitting in the conference room, still wearing yesterday's rumpled shirt, staring at the printed email in disbelief. He actually said yes? Tyler read the email for the third time. After we've been poking at him for 2 weeks? Vanessa couldn't hide her smug smile. I told you the strategy would work. People can only ignore public pressure for so long. But there's a condition, Tyler's assistant pointed out. He wants to discuss media responsibility and its impact on political discourse. That sounds like a trap. Tyler waved away the concern. That's just his way of trying to control the narrative. Once he's in the chair, we can steer the conversation wherever we want. He tossed the paper onto the table. Set it up. First week of next month after his midterms. You sure? Vanessa asked. This kid has never done interviews. We have no idea what he's like on camera. He could be boring as watching paint dry. Or he could be a nervous wreck who says something stupid, Tyler countered. Either way, people will watch. The mysterious Trump finally speaks. We'll promote it like crazy. As the meeting broke up, Tyler pulled Vanessa aside. Get the research. Team to dig deep. I want to know everything about this kid, friends, girlfriends, social media accounts, classes, professors, everything. Find me some angles. While Tyler's team scrambled to prepare, Barron sat in the campus coffee shop working on a paper for his business ethics class. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. They accepted. Show date set for November 3rd. Details to follow. Barron put down his phone and took a deep breath. He had expected them to say yes, Reynolds was too hungry for ratings to turn down this opportunity. But now that it was happening, the reality of what he'd agreed to settled in. He was about to step voluntarily into the spotlight he'd spent his entire life avoiding. His phone buzzed again, this time with a call from his father. I just heard, came the distinctive voice, skipping any greeting. Are you sure about this? Barron. That Reynolds guy is bad news, very dishonest, very unfair. I'm sure, Dad, Barron replied, keeping his voice low in the crowded coffee shop. I know what I'm doing. You know they're going to try to use you to get to me, right? Everything you say, they'll twist it to make me look bad. I know, Barron said simply. I've watched this happen my whole life. There was a pause on the other end of the line. You don't have to do this. Say the word, and I'll have my people put out a statement. Something came up, you're too busy with school, whatever you want. Barron smiled slightly at the offer. Despite everything, his father had always been protective of him, especially when it came to the media. Thanks, but I want to do this. Trust me. After a few more minutes of conversation, Barron hung up and returned to his paper. The irony wasn't lost on him. Writing about ethical business practices while preparing to face one of the most ethically questionable figures in media over. The next few weeks, as midterms approached, Barron divided his time between studying and preparing for the interview. He compiled research, watched hours of late-night discourse to understand Reynolds' interview style, and even practiced with Tom, who gleefully played the role of an antagonistic host. You need to be ready for him to blindside you, Tom warned, during one of their practice sessions. He's not going to stick to the media responsibility topic. He's going to try to make you angry. I know, Barron replied calmly. That's what they all do. News of the upcoming interview spread quickly. Other talk shows discussed it, news outlets speculated about what Barron might say, and social media buzzed with predictions. Some people expressed support for Barron finally speaking out. Others assumed he was being forced to appear by his family's PR team. 3 days before the interview, Barron received a call from his older sister. Are you nervous? She asked. A little, Barron admitted, but more about the cameras than about Reynolds. You'll be fine. Remember, don't let him interrupt you. That's his favorite trick. He asks a question, then cuts people off before they can finish answering. Just keep talking, calmly but firmly. Thanks for the tip, Barron said. Any other advice? Yes, she said. Be yourself, not the Trump people expect, but the Barron we know. The quiet, thoughtful one who sees more than he says. The night before the interview, as Barron packed his bag for the overnight trip to the studio in the city, Tom handed him a tie. "For luck," Tom said. "It's not too flashy, not too boring, just like your answers should be." Barron looked at the deep blue tie with a subtle pattern. "Thanks. I'll wear it." "Just promise me one thing," Tom said, suddenly serious. "No matter what happens tomorrow, don't let that guy change you. You've spent years being the normal one in your family, the private one. Don't let one TV appearance turn you into just another loud voice." Barron nodded, touched by his roommate's concern. "I promise." The morning of the interview, Barron woke early. He dressed carefully in a navy suit, Tom's tie, and minimal styling product in his hair. He wanted to look put together but not overly produced. He arrived at the studio 2 hours before filming, as requested, and was shown to a small waiting room. "Mr. Reynolds would like to meet you before the show," a production assistant informed him. "Just to break the ice. Is that okay?" "That's fine," Barron agreed, though he suspected this ice-breaking was actually an attempt to size him up before the cameras rolled. Tyler Reynolds appeared moments later, all smiles and charm as he shook Barron's hand firmly. "Thanks for coming on the show," Tyler said, his voice friendly but his eyes calculating. "We're really excited to have you." "Thanks for having me," Barron replied evenly. "So media responsibility, huh?" Tyler gestured for Barron to sit. "Heavy topic for your first interview ever." It seemed relevant, Barron said, meeting Tyler's gaze directly. Tyler laughed, the sound practiced and hollow. "Look, I just want to be upfront with you. The audience tunes in for entertainment. They want a few laughs, maybe a little drama. They're not looking for a lecture on media ethics." "I understand," Barron nodded. "People want to be entertained." "Exactly." Tyler seemed relieved. "So we'll touch on your topic, sure, but we'll keep it light. Maybe talk about what it's like being in your family, your experiences at school, that kind of thing." "Sound good?" Barron smiled slightly. "We'll see how it goes." A flicker of uncertainty crossed Tyler's face before his professional smile returned. "Great. See you out there in an hour." After Tyler left, Barron was introduced to the makeup artist, a kind-faced woman named Lucy, who chatted about her kids while applying minimal makeup to reduce shine under the harsh studio lights. "Nervous?" she asked, dusting powder across his forehead. "A bit," Barron admitted. "Don't be," she said quietly. "Just remember, they edit these things. If you mess up, they can cut it out. Usually," she added with a knowing look. As the hour approached, the production assistant returned to walk Barron through the format of the show. They would start with Tyler's monologue, then move to Barron's segment, which would last about 15 minutes. "Just follow Mr. Reynolds' lead," the assistant advised. "He's great at making guests feel comfortable." Barron thanked her for the information, then asked for a few minutes alone before the show. Once the door closed behind her, he took out his phone and reviewed his notes one last time. Not talking points, he'd memorized those, but reminders to himself. "Stay calm. Speak clearly. Don't let him bait you. Remember why you're doing this." He put away his phone as a knock came at the door. "5 minutes, Mr. Trump." Barron stood, straightened his tie, and took a deep breath. For 21 years, he had stayed in the background watching as his family battled the media, sometimes winning, sometimes losing, but always engaging in a way that seemed to fuel the fire rather than extinguish it. Today, he would try something different. As he walked toward the stage, he could hear the audience's applause for Tyler's monologue. Through the curtain, he caught a glimpse of the host at his desk, smirking as he delivered a joke that Barron couldn't quite hear. "Ready?" asked the stage manager. Barron nodded. "Ready." The lights seemed impossibly bright as Barron walked onto the stage. The audience's reaction was a mix of enthusiastic applause and curious murmurs. He focused on walking steadily to the guest chair, reminding himself to smile and wave as he'd seen countless guests do before him. Tyler stood to greet him, his smile wide and camera ready. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, for the first time on any talk show, Barron Trump." The studio lights were hotter than Barron had expected. He settled into the guest chair, conscious of the hundreds of eyes watching him from the audience, and the millions more who would see this later. Tyler Reynolds sat across from him, leaning casually on his desk, his trademark smirk firmly in place. "So, Barron Trump," Tyler began, drawing out the name. "I have to say, we're all surprised to see you here. You've managed to stay out of the spotlight for, well, your entire life." "I've been busy with school," Barron replied, his voice steadier than he felt. Right. Business school." Tyler nodded, glancing down at his notes. "Top of your class, I hear. Impressive." The way he said impressive made it sound like he believed the opposite. "I work hard," Barron said simply. "I'm sure you do," Tyler smiled. "But let's be honest here. The Trump name opens doors, doesn't it? Makes things a little easier?" And there it was, not even 30 seconds in. Barron had expected this line of questioning, but not quite so quickly. "Actually," he replied, "in some ways it makes things harder. Professors expect more from me, not less. And students," he shrugged. "Let's just say not everyone wants to be friends with a Trump." Tyler looked momentarily surprised by the honest answer. "Fair enough. So you wanted to talk about media responsibility today? That's a pretty heavy topic for your first ever interview." I thought. "It was relevant," Barron said, echoing his words from their pre-show meeting. "Because of the jokes I made about you?" Tyler asked, not looking particularly sorry. "Partly," Barron admitted, "but more broadly because of how media shapes our understanding of people we've never met." "You mean like how people have opinions about your family without knowing you personally?" "Exactly." Barron nodded. "Media creates narratives, and those narratives affect real people." Tyler leaned back in his chair. "Well, when your father ran for president twice, he put himself in the public eye. That's the trade-off, right? Power and influence in exchange for public scrutiny." "For adults who choose that path, yes," Barron agreed. "But what about their children? What about people who never chose to be public figures?" Tyler waved his hand dismissively. "That's just how it works. If you're connected to famous people, you're fair game. It's been that way since the beginning of media." "But should it be?" Barron asked. "Just because something has always been done a certain way doesn't mean it's right or that it can't change." A slight frown crossed Tyler's face. This wasn't going how he'd planned. The kid was too composed, too reasonable. Time to change tactics. "Speaking of your father," Tyler said, abruptly shifting gears, "what do you think of his latest comments about immigration?" Barron didn't blink. "I'm not here to speak for my father. He does that quite effectively himself." A few laughs rippled through the audience. "So you disagree with him?" Tyler pressed. "I didn't say that," Barron replied calmly. "I said I'm not here to speak for him. I have my own thoughts on issues, but that's not why I agreed to this interview." Tyler's smile tightened. "Fair enough, let's talk about you then. You're 21 now, old enough to vote. Did you vote for your dad?" Barron met Tyler's gaze. "I believe voting is private." "Come on," Tyler pressed. "It's a simple question." "It's actually not," Barron countered. "It's a question designed to put me in an impossible position. If I say, yes, you'll paint me as blindly loyal. If I say no, you'll use it to suggest family division. And either way, you're steering us away from the topic I came here to discuss." A few people in the audience clapped, surprising both men on stage. Tyler's producer spoke urgently in his earpiece. "Cut to commercial if this gets out of hand," but Tyler wasn't ready to give up. He reached below his desk and pulled out a stack of printed memes and social media posts. "Let's have some fun, shall we? I've collected some of the internet's greatest hits about your family. Rate them for accuracy on a scale of 1 to 10. He held up the first image, a particularly unflattering photo of Barron's father with a crude caption. Barron looked at it without changing expression. "This is exactly what I mean about media responsibility." "It's just a joke," Tyler said, showing the image to the audience, who responded with mixed laughter. "Lighten up. Is it just a joke when it contributes to dehumanizing people?" Barron asked. "When it reduces complex human beings to caricatures?" "Oh, come on." Tyler rolled his eyes. "Your father says far worse things about people all the time. And two wrongs make a right?" Barron raised an eyebrow. Tyler set the stack aside, his frustration becoming visible. Look, you can't expect the media to handle politicians with kid gloves. It's our job to hold power accountable. There's a difference between holding power accountable and mockery, Barron pointed out. One serves democracy, the other undermines it. A wave of murmurs passed through the audience. This wasn't the nervous, overwhelmed young man they had expected to see. Tyler glanced at his producer, who was gesturing urgently. They needed to regain control of the conversation. "Let's take a quick break," Tyler announced, turning to the camera with a practiced smile. "When we come back, more with Barron Trump." As the on-air light dimmed, Tyler leaned toward Barron. "You're making this very difficult," he said, his friendly tone gone. "I'm just answering your questions," Barron replied. "No, you're turning my show into a lecture hall. People tune in for entertainment." "And what's more entertaining than honest conversation?" Barron asked. Before Tyler could respond, makeup artists rushed in to touch up both men, and producers huddled around Tyler, speaking in urgent whispers. Barron caught fragments. Change approach, and get him talking about, and personal details. The floor director counted down. Back in 5, 4, 3. The red light blinked on and Tyler's camera-ready smile returned. "Welcome back to Late Night Discourse. We're here with Barron Trump, who's making his first ever talk show appearance. Barron, let's talk about your life growing up. It must have been pretty unusual, right? Living in the White House as a teenager." Barron nodded. "It was definitely not a typical high school experience. I bet," Tyler laughed. "Secret Service following you around, world leaders at dinner. Did you ever throw any wild White House parties when the parents were away?" "No." Barron smiled slightly. "Security is pretty tight there." "Come on," Tyler pressed. "You must have some good stories. Did you ever sneak girls into the Lincoln bedroom?" Several audience members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The question felt invasive, especially given Barron's age at the time. "I focused on school," Barron said simply. "Like most teenagers." Tyler tried another angle. "What about now? You're in college, prime dating years. Anyone special in your life? The ladies must be lining up for a Trump heir." Barron's expression didn't change, but his voice cooled slightly. "I prefer to keep my personal life private." "Private?" Tyler raised his eyebrows dramatically. "Is that even possible for a Trump?" "I'm trying to find out," Barron said. Tyler leaned forward, his tone becoming more pointed. "Here's what I don't understand. You say you want privacy, but your family has built their entire brand on being as public and outrageous as possible. Don't you think that's a bit hypocritical?" The audience tensed, sensing the shift in tone. "Different people in the same family can want different things," Barron replied. "Just because my last name is Trump doesn't mean I have to live my life the same way as everyone else in my family. But you benefit from the Trump name, from the Trump money, from Trump connections," Tyler pressed. "You can't just take the good parts and reject the rest." "Everyone navigates their family legacy in their own way," Barron said. "I respect my family's choices, but I'm making my own." Tyler seemed increasingly frustrated by Barron's measured responses. He glanced at his notes, then decided to go for broke. "Let's cut to the chase," he said, leaning forward. "What's your game here? This whole thoughtful, private scholar act? Is this how you're positioning yourself for your own political run someday? Trump 2032? Barron almost laughed. "I have no political ambitions." "Really? None?" Tyler's skepticism was clear. "The son of a president with no interest in politics? I find that hard to believe." "Believe what you want," Barron shrugged. "But I'm more interested in business innovation than political campaigns." Tyler tapped his pen against his desk, studying. "Barron." Then he reached for his final card. "You know what I think? I think you've been carefully coached for this appearance. These measured responses, this whole media responsibility angle, it's all a calculated PR move." He leaned in closer. "So tell me, who's pulling your strings? Did Daddy send his PR team to prep you? Are you just repeating talking points someone else wrote for you? Have you ever had an original thought that wasn't tweeted to you by your father?" A hush fell over the studio. The question had crossed a line, and everyone knew it. Even some of the producers backstage winced. Barron looked at Tyler for a long moment, his expression unreadable. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Tyler started to say something else, but Barron raised his hand slightly, and to everyone's surprise, Tyler fell silent. "Are you finished?" Barron asked quietly. Tyler, momentarily thrown off balance, nodded. "Good," Barron said, straightening in his chair. "Because I have something to say." The studio was utterly silent. All eyes were on Barron as he collected his thoughts. Even the cameramen seemed to hold their breath. Tyler shifted uncomfortably in his chair, suddenly aware that he might have miscalculated badly. "You've spent 15 minutes trying to provoke me," Barron began, his voice calm but clear. "You've asked leading questions, made assumptions about my character, questioned my intelligence, and tried to create conflict where there isn't any." He paused, looking directly at Tyler. "And that's exactly why I wanted to talk about media responsibility today." Tyler opened his mouth to interrupt, but Barron continued speaking. "For the past several years, I've been studying communications and media influence as part of my business degree. I've analyzed hundreds of interviews just like this one." He gestured between them. "Interviews where the goal isn't to inform or connect, but to create moments of conflict that can be clipped, shared, and used to drive engagement." The producers backstage exchanged nervous glances. This wasn't going according to plan at all. "I'm not here to attack you personally," Barron continued. "You're just doing what the current media system rewards. Outrage gets clicks, conflict drives viewership, nuance gets buried, and we all lose in that environment." Tyler found his voice. "That's a pretty simplistic view of journalism." "Is it?" Barron asked. "Let me ask you something. When your team was preparing for this interview, how much time did they spend looking for potential moments of controversy versus trying to understand who I actually am as a person?" Tyler's silence was answer enough. "That's not journalism," Barron said quietly. "That's entertainment wearing the costume of journalism. And there's a place for entertainment, absolutely, but not when it's disguised as something else." A few audience members nodded in agreement. "Look," Tyler said, trying to regain control. "Viewers want to see real, unfiltered moments. They want authenticity." "I agree completely," Barron nodded. "But there's nothing authentic about trying to trap someone into saying something they'll regret. That's manipulation, not authenticity." He leaned forward slightly. "You want to know who I really am? I'm a college student who enjoys economics and technology. I play chess. I read science fiction. I worry about climate change and artificial intelligence. I have friends across the political spectrum. I'm trying to figure out my place in the world just like every other 21-year-old. The audience was captivated now, listening intently. "But that's boring television, isn't it?" Barron continued. "It doesn't fit the narrative. It's easier to see me as just an extension of my father, either to love or hate depending on your politics. It's easier to reduce me to a caricature than to see me as a complex human being." Tyler tried to pivot. "You're giving me a lot of media criticism for someone who's never been in the media." "I've been watching from the sidelines my entire life," Barron replied. "Sometimes the person observing the game sees patterns the players miss." One of the producers frantically signaled to Tyler, making a cutting motion across her throat. They needed to wrap this up before it got worse. "We're almost out of time," Tyler said, glancing at his watch. "Any final thoughts before we go?" It was a standard closing question, meant to signal the end of the interview. But Barron wasn't finished. "Actually, yes," he said, reaching into his jacket pocket. "I brought something I'd like to share." He pulled out a folded piece of paper. "This is an excerpt from my thesis project on media polarization. May I read it?" Tyler hesitated, then nodded, not seeing a graceful way to refuse. Barron unfolded the paper. "When media prioritizes conflict over conversation, when it rewards the loudest voices rather than the wisest ones, it doesn't just reflect division, it creates it. In a healthy democracy, we need spaces where different perspectives can be shared without immediate judgment, where questions can be asked in good faith and where complexity is embraced rather than flattened." He looked up from the paper. "I'm not naive. I know that media needs to be financially viable. but I believe we can create systems that reward depth and nuance instead of just outrage and simplification. Barron refolded the paper and returned it to his pocket. That's why I accepted your invitation. Not to defend my family. They're quite capable of defending themselves. But to demonstrate that genuine dialogue is possible, even between people who might seem to be on opposite sides. He smiled slightly. And to be honest, to see if you'd prove my thesis right. And did I? Tyler asked, a hint of defensiveness in his voice. You tell me, Barron replied. Did you come into this interview genuinely curious about my thoughts? Or were you looking for moments that would generate the most shares and comments? The directness of the question hung in the air. The audience waited for Tyler's response. For the first time that evening, Tyler Reynolds looked genuinely thrown off balance. He was used to controlling interviews, to having guests who either played along with his style or got flustered by it. This calm analysis was something new. TV is a business, he said finally. My job is to create compelling content. And that's exactly my point, Barron nodded. The business model shapes the content. If we want better public discourse, we need to change what we reward. Tyler glanced at the clock, relieved to see they were officially out of time. Well, this has certainly been different, he said, forcing a smile. Barron Trump, everyone. The audience applauded, more enthusiastically than Tyler expected. As the cameras prepared to cut away, Barron added one last comment. Thank you for having me, he said to Tyler. And thank you for being such a perfect case study for my thesis. Several audience members laughed, and a few even stood to applaud. Tyler's smile became increasingly strained as he turned to the camera. We'll be right back after these messages, he said, his voice tight. As soon as the red light on the camera turned off, Tyler yanked off his microphone and stormed off the set without another word to Barron. Producers rushed in, some following Tyler, others approaching Barron. That was unexpected, one producer said, helping Barron remove his microphone. Was it? Barron asked. I thought I was pretty clear about why I wanted to come on the show. The producer shook her head, something like respect in her eyes. Most guests don't actually stick to their talking points, especially when Tyler goes after them. It's impressive. Backstage, Tyler was pacing in his dressing room, his face flushed with anger. What the hell just happened? He demanded when his executive producer entered. That kid made me look like an idiot out there. He didn't make you look like anything, Vanessa replied calmly. He just didn't react the way we expected. We need to edit this before it airs, Tyler insisted. Cut out the parts where he lectures me about media responsibility. Vanessa shook her head. It's too late. We were live. What? Tyler stopped pacing. Who authorized that? We almost never broadcast live. You did, she reminded him. 2 weeks ago. You said the possibility of Barron Trump making a mistake on live TV was too good to pass up. Tyler sank into his chair, running his hands through his hair. This is a disaster. Actually, Vanessa said, checking her phone, social media is blowing up. We're trending everywhere. Because I got schooled by a college kid? Because it was real, Vanessa said. People are calling it the most honest moment they've seen on late-night TV in years. Meanwhile, Barron was escorted to a side exit to avoid the crowd of reporters who had gathered outside the main doors. His phone was already filling up with messages. From his family, from friends, from people he hadn't spoken to in years. A text from Tom appeared. Dude, you're everywhere. Respectful disagreement is trending. Barron put his phone away. He hadn't done this for attention or to go viral. He'd done it because he believed what he'd said, that better conversation was possible, even in the most unlikely places. As he slipped into the back seat of the waiting car, he felt a strange mix of exhaustion and satisfaction. He'd been preparing for this moment for weeks, but in some ways he realized he'd been preparing for it his entire life. Where to, sir? The driver asked. Back to campus, Barron replied. I have class in the morning. The driver nodded, pulling away from the studio as Barron leaned back in his seat. For once, he'd chosen to step into the spotlight on his own terms. Now he was ready to step back out of it and return to the quiet life he preferred. But as his phone continued to buzz with notifications, he wondered if that would be possible anymore. By the time Barron's car pulled into campus, clips of the interview were already spreading across the internet like wildfire. Students huddled around phones in the dorm common rooms, coffee shops buzzed with conversations about what had happened, and news websites scrambled to post analysis of what many were calling the most unexpected television moment of the year. Barron slipped into his dorm room just after midnight, hoping to avoid attention. To his relief, the hallways had been quiet. He found Tom waiting up for him, laptop open to a social media feed that seemed to be entirely filled with clips and comments about the interview. "You broke the internet," Tom said, looking up as Barron closed the door behind him. "That wasn't the goal," Barron replied, loosening his tie and dropping his bag on the bed. "Goal or not, that's what happened." Tom turned his laptop around. "Look, at this, you're trending in 12 countries. Your hashtag has over 2 million mentions already." Barron glanced at the screen. A respectful disagreement was indeed trending, along with a Barron clapback and, somewhat to his dismay, Trump 2032. "I'm going to shower and sleep," Barron said, deliberately turning away from the screen. "I still have that economics paper due tomorrow." Tom shook his head in disbelief. "Only, you would be worried about homework after what just happened." But as Barron stood under the hot water, letting it wash away the makeup and the tension of the evening, he wondered what exactly had happened. He had gone on the show with a specific purpose: to demonstrate that civil conversation was possible even in hostile environments. He hadn't expected to become a viral sensation. He hadn't expected to become anything at all, really. That had never been his style. His phone had over 300 new messages when he finally checked it. Family, friends, classmates, and dozens of media requests. His father had called 7 times. His mother had texted simply, "I am proud of you, call when you can." He responded to a few messages from family and close friends, then turned off his phone. The paper wouldn't write itself, and unlike the rest of the world, Professor Chen wouldn't care about his 15 minutes of fame. Morning brought a campus, transformed. As Barron walked to his first class wearing a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes, he noticed people watching him, whispering as he passed. Some smiled and nodded. A few even gave him thumbs up. It was exactly the kind of attention he had always worked to avoid. His phone buzzed with a text from the dean's office. "Dr. Wilson would like to see you at your earliest convenience." Barron sighed. This was exactly what he had feared. That his moment in the spotlight would disrupt the normal life he had carefully built. He typed back that he could come after his afternoon class. In class, his professors treated him normally, though he noticed several students sneaking glances at him throughout the lectures. By lunchtime, he had given up on the baseball cap disguise and was trying to eat quickly in a corner of the dining hall when a sophomore he recognized from his business ethics class approached. "Sorry to bother you," she said, "but I just wanted to say I watched your interview last night. What you said about media responsibility really resonated with me. I'm studying journalism, and it made me think about the kind of reporter I want to be." Barron was surprised by the sincerity in her voice. "Thank you," he said simply. "Anyway, sorry to interrupt your lunch," she continued. "I just wanted you to know that not everyone is seeing this as just a viral moment or political statement. Some of us actually heard the message." As she walked away, Barron felt a small shift in his perspective. Perhaps this unexpected attention wasn't entirely negative. His meeting with Dean Wilson that afternoon was not what he expected either. "I won't take much of your time," the dean said after Barron had taken a seat in her office. "I just wanted to check in and make sure you're managing all the attention." "I'm trying to keep my head down and focus on classes," Barron replied. The dean nodded. "Good. But I also want you to know that what you did was impressive. Standing up for thoughtful discourse is exactly what we try to teach here. Your professors have been talking about it all morning." She leaned forward slightly. "The communications department is wondering if you might be willing to speak to some of their classes about your experience Only if you're comfortable, of course. Barron was taken aback. I'm not really a public speaker. Evidence suggests otherwise. The dean smiled. Think about it, that's all. No pressure. As he left the administration building, Barron's phone rang. It was his older brother. Little bro, man of the hour. Barron smiled despite himself. Hey, how's it going? How's it going? That's what you ask after what happened last night? It's insane here. Dad's been calling everyone, bragging about you. Mom's had 3 news outlets reach out for exclusive interviews with you, which she politely declined, and my phone's blowing up with people asking if you're really running in 2032. I'm not, Barron said quickly. I know that. But the internet has decided you are. There are already unofficial campaign logos circulating. Barron groaned. That's exactly what I was trying to avoid. Maybe. But you've also got people across the political spectrum actually talking to each other in the comments. Do you know how rare that is? Usually it's just people screaming past each other. After hanging up, Barron checked his emails and found one from his business ethics professor. The subject line read, Your Living Case Study. Mr. Trump, the email began. In light of recent events, I'm extending the deadline for your media ethics paper. I believe you now have some first-hand research to incorporate. Looking forward to reading your analysis. By dinner time, Barron had received 17 interview requests, 9 offers for podcast appearances, and oddly, 3 book deal inquiries. He declined them all through brief, polite emails. Meanwhile, across town, Tyler Reynolds was having a very different day. The morning production meeting had been tense, with network executives calling in to discuss what had happened. The numbers are incredible, Vanessa reported. Best viewership in the show's history. The clips have been viewed over 30 million times across platforms. Great, Tyler said without enthusiasm. So the kid humiliating me is good for business, wonderful. It's not about humiliation, one of the network executives said over the speakerphone. It's about authenticity. Viewers are responding to the genuine moment that happened. They're tired of the same predictable interviews. After the meeting, Tyler sat alone in his office rewatching clips of the interview. Viewed with a bit of distance, he could see what had happened more clearly. He had approached Barron as a target, not as a guest. He had been so focused on creating a viral moment that he had missed the actual story. His assistant knocked on the door. Sorry to interrupt, but you asked me to research the data on viewership patterns. And? Tyler asked. It's interesting. Our regular viewers tuned in, but we also picked up a huge number of viewers who don't normally watch late-night TV at all. And the demographic spread is much wider than usual. We reached people across all political affiliations, ages, and backgrounds. Tyler nodded slowly, an idea forming. Thanks. Can you get Barron Trump's contact information for me? 2 days later, as the media frenzy began to die down, Barron received an unexpected email from Tyler Reynolds himself. I doubt you want to hear from me, the email began. But I've been thinking about our conversation. You made some valid points about media responsibility that I've been wrestling with. I'm not saying I agree with everything you said, but you've given me a lot to think about. If you're ever interested in continuing the conversation, off camera just as people, I'd welcome that. No tricks, no gotcha moments. Just 2 guys talking about how to make public discourse better. Barron read the email twice, surprised by its seemingly genuine tone. He didn't respond immediately, unsure if this was another media ploy or a real moment of reflection. That evening, he finally called his parents. His father spent 10 minutes talking about ratings and how he had shown that host who's boss, missing the actual point entirely. His mother, however, seemed to understand. You stood up for something you believe in, she said. Not in an angry way, but with dignity. That's rare these days. A week after the interview, life at school had mostly returned to normal. Students no longer stared when Barron walked into a room. Professors had stopped making references to the interview in class, and the media requests had slowed to a trickle. Barron had agreed to speak to one journalism ethics class, where he emphasized that his goal hadn't been to embarrass anyone, but to demonstrate that even difficult conversations could be handled with respect. As for Tyler Reynolds, his show had taken a subtle but noticeable shift in tone. The interviews were a bit less confrontational, a bit more substantive. He had even introduced a new segment called Common Ground, where guests with opposing viewpoints discussed areas where they agreed. The viral moment had passed, as all viral moments do. But something had shifted in the cultural conversation, if only slightly. People across the political spectrum had glimpsed the possibility of disagreement without demonization, of confidence without cruelty. Barron never did respond to Tyler's mail, not because he was holding a grudge, but because he had said what he needed to say. He had stepped briefly into the spotlight to make a point, and now he was content to step back into the quieter life he preferred. But he kept the email, a reminder that sometimes, just sometimes, words spoken thoughtfully can cut through the noise and actually be heard.